Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving into an incredibly dramatic, atmospheric, historical narrative. It's a story all about human impatience and ultimately divine mercy. This narrative has been passed down through generations, and as we unpack the source texts today, we're going to explore a journey that is just as psychologically fascinating as it is physically extreme. We're looking at the unbelievable story of the prophet Yunus, who is also known as Dhu al-Nun. Right off the bat, I want you to picture this. Imagine being trapped alive in absolute suffocating darkness. I mean, no light, no sound, total sensory deprivation. But it's actually worse than that, because you're completely isolated from the rest of the world, with literally no way out. It's a terrifying thought, right? Pretty much the ultimate claustrophobic nightmare. But the real question here is, how on earth did a chosen messenger, a prophet of God, end up in this exact unimaginable situation? Well, to figure that out, we have to rewind the clock a bit and trace the exact steps that led to this massive mystery. So, part 1, the breaking point. The historical texts place Prophet Yunus in the ancient region of Nineveh, which is in modern-day Iraq. His mission was to call his people away from idol worship, but he was met with just stubborn, arrogant rejection. Day after day, Yunus faced this constant pushback until he finally reached his absolute breaking point. He assumed his mission was completely over. Actually, scratch that. He didn't just assume it. He was entirely convinced it was a lost cause. Out of sheer frustration, he just walked away. But here is the critical error. He departed without waiting for divine permission. He didn't have a command from his Lord to migrate. He just left. Okay, let's dive into this timeline because the way he actually leaves is incredibly dramatic. Before he completely walked away, he didn't just, quietly slip out the back of the city. No, he issued a chilling final warning. He told his stubborn people that divine punishment would strike them within exactly 3 days. Imagine the tension there. 1 day left, 2 days left, 3 days left. A literal ticking clock hangs over the entire city of Nineveh as their prophet turns his back and marches away into the unknown. Which brings us to part 2, the people's repentance. Back in the city, the atmosphere suddenly changed. As the people started witnessing these terrifying signs of approaching wrath, their arrogance completely shattered. And here we see a really brilliant contrast in the narrative. Think about it. On one side, Yunus is walking away in anger and technically in disobedience to his divine mandate. But on the other side, the supposedly irredeemable people of Nineveh do the exact opposite. Men, women, and children march straight into the desert to sincerely plead for salvation. They don't run away, they humble themselves, they declare pure faith. And because their repentance was utterly sincere, God removed the impending disaster and lifted the affliction from them. Meanwhile, we have part 3, the ocean storm. So, while all that is happening, Yunus had boarded a passenger ship to make his escape. But they were quickly caught in this chaotic, truly terrifying storm. With the ship on the brink of sinking, the panicked passengers agreed they absolutely had to throw someone overboard to lighten the load. So they decide to draw lots. And this brilliantly illustrates the inescapable inevitability of divine will. They draw the first lot, and it lands on Yunus. Thinking it's just a fluke, they draw again. Yunus. A third and final time? You guessed it. Yunus. 3 consecutive times. At this very moment, the reality of the situation hits Yunus like a ton of bricks. He knows exactly what this is. This isn't bad luck. This is a direct result of his premature departure. Realizing that this is God's will, Yunus doesn't fight it at all. In a breathtaking moment of surrender, the prophet is cast into the violent, raging deep waters of the sea, swallowed by the crashing waves as the ship sails on without him. Now we reach part 4, inside the giant whale. As Yunus sank down into the freezing depths, God commanded a giant whale to intercept him, swallowing the prophet whole without breaking a single bone. As this massive creature dove into the oceanic abyss, Yunus was enveloped in what the text describes as the 3 darknesses. First, the pitch-black darkness of the night above. Second, the crushing heavy darkness of the deep sea. And third, the suffocating fleshy darkness of the whale's belly. It is an environment of absolute isolation. He is entirely cut off from humanity, completely submerged in a darkness so profound it really defies imagination. Part 5, the immortal prayer. Engulfed in these 3 layers of darkness, stripped of absolutely everything, ultimate clarity set in. Recognizing that his suffering was a direct consequence of his own impatience, his arrogance in assuming his mission was over, and his departure without his Lord's command, he calls out with a prayer that the text preserves as immortal. He says, "There is no deity except you. Exalted are you. Indeed, I have been of the wrongdoers.
This isn't just a generic plea for help, you know? It is a profound declaration of absolute radical accountability. He doesn't make a single excuse. He owns his mistake completely. And this exact phrase, birthed in the belly of a whale, became the ultimate refuge and prayer for every believer finding themselves in distress.
And that sincere call from the darkest depths, it was heard. God responded to his prayer and his deep remorse. The divine command was given to the great whale, and it swam right to the shoreline, gently ejecting the prophet onto the dry earth. But Yunus didn't exactly emerge triumphant and flexing, right? The ordeal had taken a massive toll on his body. He was cast ashore incredibly weak, physically exhausted, and very sick.
Bringing us to our final chapter, Part 6, Healing and Return.
So Yunus is left lying there on the beach, completely vulnerable and needing immediate care. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the specificity of the relief provided. God miraculously causes a gourd tree, or yucting, to grow directly over him. The text highlights its specific benefits for a sick, recovering man. It has these incredibly broad leaves that provided a cool, protective shade over his weakened body. Furthermore, this specific plant naturally repels flies and insects, which protected his vulnerable skin. And finally, it provided him with nourishing fruit to eat. Under this perfectly engineered shelter, Yunus slowly, safely regained his health and his strength.
Once he heals up, God commands him to do the very thing he had run away from in the first place, return to his people. So the crucial point is his return to Nineveh. Imagine his shock when he walks back into the city to find it completely transformed. Every single one of them had embraced faith during his absence. He was welcomed back with open arms, and the text tells us he lived out his days among them in peace, teaching and guiding a community that remained faithful until the end of their appointed time.
You see, this source text presents us with so much more than just a historical event. It's really a blueprint for human resilience. We all have moments where we just want to throw our hands up and run away in frustration. We all face situations that feel like 3 layers of suffocating darkness. So I want to leave you with this to think about today. What is your whale? What is that overwhelming isolation or darkness that you're facing right now? And based on the journey of Yunus, how might extreme patience and stepping up to radical accountability be the exact key you need to find your way out and back to the light? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll check you on the next one.